Hello, we are Group 3, the East Coast Ladies. I'm Haley.
I'm Kristen.
I'm Lauren.
I'm Tiffany.
I'm Taylor.
I'm Cassie.
We would like to talk to you about the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 and how it has affected the social work environment to this day.
On American Experience.
The Chinese exclusion law is the first time that a group is singled out by name as being undesirable.
There was horrific violence against the Chinese.
People would fan out and attack any poor soul that happened to be on the street.
How could this country do what it did against a whole class of people?
The Chinese Exclusion Act on American Experience.
We would like to introduce a social worker who began working with migrants in the 1900s and who, alongside other notable social workers, began to create change for migrants in the United States. Who was the social worker? The answer is Grace Abbott.
Let's move on to some history. The Chinese Exclusion Act contained 15 sections outlining the exclusion of Chinese laborers. This was the first and only U.S. federal law that prohibited the immigration of specific nationality. The law specifically, 1, banned the immigration of Chinese laborers for 10 years, 2, allowed only Chinese immigrants who were in the U.S. as of November 17, 1880, to remain or travel overseas and return. 3, disallowed Chinese immigrants to obtain citizenship. And 4, provided exemption for students, teachers, travelers, and merchants.
Before the Chinese Exclusion Act was passed, many Chinese immigrants worked in the gold mines, the agricultural sector, factories, and helped to build the Westward Railroad. As the volume of Chinese immigrants increased, so did the feeling of anti-Chinese attitudes due to economic competition for jobs and wages, as well as cultural tensions and feelings of nativism. Prior to the passage of the act, the California state government passed several actions targeted at the Chinese, and Chinese immigrants began to face mounting instances of violence directed against them. In 1854, California Supreme Court case People versus Hall, the judge ruled that Chinese people were not permitted to testify in court, which in effect made Chinese people unable to seek justice. The Chinese Exclusion Act was approved May 6, 1882 for a 10-year period. In 1943, Congress and President Franklin D. Roosevelt repealed the Chinese Exclusion Act and set an immigration quota for China as 105 visas per year.
The Chinese Exclusion Act was only social workers encounter the effects of social policies regarding immigration every day. These clients may be in need of food, housing, shelter, or other basic necessities. Their difficult situations are a collective result of several factors, including their immigration status, poverty or language barriers, health, or unemployment. This can serve as a challenge for social workers as immigration policies are changing at a fast rate.
Immigrant needs begin at the very start of their arrival and include a mixture of areas around social services and immigration assistance. For instance, immigrants are all experiencing homelessness and victimization, and their children are at risk of being discriminated against or having difficulty in school. The difficulty in working with undocumented immigrants may come from their limited access to resources. According to the National Immigration Forum, this population is not eligible for SNAP, regular Medicaid, SSI, or TANF, or for healthcare under the Affordable Care Act, though they may be eligible for emergency Medicaid. Social workers need to be equipped to understand an individual's immigration status in order to guide them to resources they qualify for.
We must look at reforms to undo the damage created to immigrant communities in the U.S. Instead of perpetuating the nativist view that immigrants take the space of native-born Americans, we should focus on contributions to the economy, society, and culture that immigrants bring. We should talk more about forced migration causes such as conflict, violence, lack of clean drinking water, climate change, an unstable economy, and other dangers in their native country. We can also contribute to reform by advocating for policies that reflect and further U.S. interests such as preserving families, due process, and fairness regarding entrance and deportation. It may also be worth creating a national immigration program headed by a National Immigration Affairs Office.
Finally, the creation and enforcement of labor laws that generate fair wages and safe working conditions for all U.S. workers could drastically improve the lives of immigrants as well as U.S. citizens. Thank you. We hope you enjoyed learning more about the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 and consider our thoughts on reforms.